Hamilton police officer is among the 35 people arrested this week in what's being called Project Pharoah.
It's your boy Jay Noble, we here.
Look who's back. Jay Noble!
Jermaine Dunkley, accused of ordering the murder, laughed as he was led away in handcuffs.
Yeah, these motherfuckers out here be starstruck. See us in the streets, they do nothing but pause. Look, yeah, we the ones that you've been hearing about. Beef and we air you out. Birdies flying all about.
From his humbling beginnings, Toronto native Jermaine Dunkley, professionally known as Jay Noble, emerged onto the music scene against all odds. Raised in Rexdale's notorious Mount Olive neighborhood, Jay Noble's talent began with basketball. Noble came from a bloodline of serious hoopers. He had two brothers, Ricky and Tyrone, who were already making noise within Canada's high school basketball scene, with one article describing Ricky as one of the best high school basketball players Hamilton has ever seen. Hamilton is where the Noble family relocated to after their stepfather Paul Watson, a well-respected Lawrence Heights community activist, was gunned down in 2001 when Jay Noble was just 16 years old. Unfortunately, Ricky would become a father to twins while in high school, ultimately ending his basketball dreams. Tyrone, on the other hand, would graduate from high school with a basketball scholarship to New Mexico State University. He played in 3 March Madness tournaments, but his hoop dreams were also cut short due to a fight at a party, resulting in charges and several game suspensions. Jay Noble clearly had big shoes to fill, but surprisingly he managed to exceed expectations. His skills earned him a spot on the first ever All-Canadian All-Star team, as well as a full 4-year scholarship to the University of Nebraska, but just before he was to start his pro hooping career, he got turned back at the US border due to, quote-unquote, insufficient documentation. "I felt like crying," Noble told the local paper. Now this is the exact moment Noble's life would begin to spiral out of control. By the end of 2004, now 19, Noble's pro basketball dreams would be completely snuffed out after he had been charged with multiple firearms offenses. He did some time, but shortly after his release, he was arrested again, but this time on drug charges. He was sent to the Hamilton Wentworth Detention Center where him and his girlfriend, who was pregnant with his child at the time, got caught on the jail phones planning to smuggle $7,000 worth of pot into the jail. Noble was subsequently charged with drug trafficking, bribery, and weapons offenses and sentenced to 5 years in a federal penitentiary. Noble's troubles didn't end there. In fact, things were just getting started. Sometime in 2010, shortly after his release from prison, Dunkley returned to his old stomping grounds, Mount Olive, where he began to make a name for himself in Toronto's underground hip-hop world as a rapper named Jay Noble. He created a crew called the Monstarz, a name inspired by the animated villains in the 1996 movie Space Jam. To say his music took off instantly would be an understatement. Within 2 years of entering the scene, he earned his own Vivo channel, and for those that have been on YouTube long enough, you know that's a major accomplishment. The raw emotion derived from the loss of his father to his failed basketball career fueled his lyrical prowess, catapulting him to new heights. Noble established himself as a force to be reckoned with pretty quickly, but as his rap career elevated, so did the weight of his name within the streets of Toronto.
Handguns, automatic rifles, and more than $100,000 in cash. Items seized during yesterday's cross-country crackdown.
We're confident we've made a dent in some of the organized crime that's been plaguing some of these communities.
Police arrested more than 60 people in the raids.
In 2010, Toronto police would conduct a highly publicized raid on a gang called the Young Buck Killers, where they found cash, drugs, guns, and more, but prior to executing it, officers wiretapped several Young Buck Killer members. On these wiretaps, Jay Noble and his crew Monstarz would be brought up numerous times, and investigators quickly established they weren't just a rap group, but a highly sophisticated criminal organization that had networks with other crime groups across Ontario. From this point on, Toronto police would begin to conceptualize a plan to take down Noble and the Monstarz, but due to a number of obstacles getting in the way, it would take nearly 5 years for that to happen.
Early this morning around 4 a.m., 25-year-old Hamilton man Ricky Ricardo Dunkley had died. He was taken in a spray of bullets that flew in the middle of a community party at the Bovaird Banquet and Convention Center. As word of Dunkley's passing spread, many took to social media to reflect, like a member of the basketball community from Father Henry Carr School, saying, "My condolences to Ricky Dunkley's family. I have a heavy heart. Ricky was a nice boy and a great baller."
July 28, 2013. Shortly after 10 p.m., a publicly advertised pre-Caravana celebration at a banquet hall in Brampton had just begun. The party included a live DJ with celebrants from cities all over the GTA, and at its peak, police believe there was as many as 300 people in attendance. Unfortunately, celebrations would be cut short when multiple gunshots went off. Several 911 calls were made from inside the banquet hall, with some callers indicating shots were still being fired as they spoke to the dispatcher. When paramedics arrived at the hall, they found Jay Noble's brother, 25-year-old Ricky Dunkley, shot in the chest and without vital signs. He was pronounced dead at the scene. He was shot inside the banquet hall after an apparent disagreement with a man by the name of Rico Gale, a reputable gang member from the Lane, which is based out of the south side of Jane and Finch. They were direct rivals of the Mount Olive Crips, a gang that had deep ties with Jay Noble and the Monstarz. Rico became suspect number one in the death of Ricky. Unfortunately, Jay Noble and his family would never see justice as Rico fled to Jamaica shortly after the incident and has never been seen since. Less than a month after the loss of his brother, Noble would begin to put out a series of songs, all of which expressed his true feelings about the incident.
Offended, just bought the Mac and the clip is extended. Me and you, nigga, now I'm killing your whole team. Oh, it's the fast life, still going from last night. See my little brother die, tell him that it's on sight. Anyway you look at it, my team be getting richer. Throw some racks up in the hood and tell my little niggas get them. Boy, yes, I still deal, nigga. The streets a cold place, but the cell's colder. Checking the calendar for when your time's over. Saying fuck them niggas that haven't been checking for you, but still dealing with the beef that we have with niggas.
Throughout these songs, a similar theme is present: revenge. Noble made it known Ricky's killer and anybody associated with him weren't safe, and if needed, he'll get someone to do the dirty work. Well, fast forward 4 months, it seems he would do just that. November 24th, 2013, CCTV footage from the North Etobicoke Community Center in Rexdale shows the following sequence of events. 25-year-old Neeko Mitchell, who was wearing a fur-lined coat, arriving at the community center just after 8 p.m. After greeting a man standing at a counter in the lobby, Mitchell is seen shaking the hand of the man who, less than 5 minutes later, will shoot him. In the moments between Mitchell's arrival and the shooting, a series of meetings are caught on camera. First, Jay Noble, spotted in the gray beanie, is seen speaking with Monstarz affiliate, Sheldon Tingle. Seconds later, Tingle meets with the shooter, who is seen wearing white shoes. Following that meeting, the shooter is seen speaking with Noble, gesturing toward the gym where Mitchell was watching his brother play basketball. Moments later, Tingle is seen walking to the gym. About 40 seconds later, he leaves, with Neeko Mitchell following behind. The shooter then leaves the community center and, as Mitchell turns around and smiles, a gun is pulled and the shots are fired. Mitchell was shot 8 times, in the head, chest, legs, arm, shoulder, and abdomen. He was the 53rd homicide of 2013.
The police are continuing to search for a suspect in a murder from last year. They updated the investigation into the murder of 25-year-old Neeko Mitchell. He was gunned down outside the North Kipling Community Center in Rexdale last November. Police had identified a suspect earlier this year, 23-year-old Reshane Hayles-Wilson of Mississauga. He is wanted for first-degree murder. Detectives say they're frustrated that he hasn't been arrested yet and note that that's because people are helping him.
Unfortunately, I'm disappointed, as are Neeko's family, to say that Mr. Hayles-Wilson remains at large as a fugitive from justice and has not been arrested yet for this murder. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that wherever he is, he continues to pose a serious risk to the public and to the police. He is violent, most likely involved in criminal activity, and should be considered armed and dangerous.
It would only take 2 months for a suspect to be named in the death of Neeko Mitchell. On January 23, 2014, Toronto police issued a Canada-wide warrant for 23-year-old Reshane Hayles-Wilson in connection with the execution-style murder of Neeko Mitchell. He would be on the run for nearly 8 months before he was captured, but when he did, he didn't hesitate to tell his side of the story. Wilson revealed he was the cousin of Jay Noble and insisted Neeko Mitchell wasn't some innocent victim. Rather, he was a violent drug dealer that threatened his life over a petty drug debt that amounted to a few $1,000s. Wilson also noted that Neeko mentioned Noble's late brother Ricky numerous times, saying he would end up like Pulla if he didn't pay him. Pulla was Ricky's nickname. Wilson also stated Noble was the one that pressured him into executing Neeko, as he believed Neeko was closely affiliated with Rico Gale, the man wanted in the murder of his brother Ricky. It is important to note that there is evidence suggesting Neeko was at the party the day Ricky was killed, even associating with Rico moments before shots rang out. At this point, Toronto police would begin to wiretap the devices of several Monstarz members in hopes of gathering evidence against Noble and his crew. For nearly a year, a wide variety of evidence was obtained, and what investigators managed to decipher was shocking, to say the least. It was confirmed that Jay Noble and the Monstarz were involved in a confirmed 44 violent incidents across Toronto beginning in 2011, including the infamous running gun battle in Mount Olive that later continued in front of Etobicoke General Hospital.
It's an all too familiar scene in Rexdale in Toronto's North End. A mass of police cars, residents peering out from behind their closed doors, and paramedics tending to the wounded. Police say 4 gunmen drove up to the housing complex and opened fire, wounding 3.
It's definitely brazen, and it is alarming.
But it's what happened next that left even police stunned. The alleged shooters followed their targets to the hospital and once again opened fire, wounding a 4th before escaping.
We heard 3 shots, bang, bang, bang.
Last thing they expect is gunshots to ring out right at the hospital, so it's very brazen.
What you're seeing in Rexdale is more street-level gang type of activity, which is more reckless, more brazen, more entitled.
Wiretaps also revealed that Noble had a high-ranking detective constable from the Hamilton Police Services giving sensitive police information to him and his team in exchange for cash. According to reports, Constable Craig Ruthowsky was part of a pay-for-protection scheme in which he would tell the Monstarz the locations of pending search warrants, the identities of people protected under a publication ban, and covert investigative techniques used by police officers in exchange for $20,000 a month.
The car windows smashed and the stuff is gone.
Huh.
So he was wondering, do you think like the cops do they do stuff like that? Like just take it and maybe charge someone later or like?
Yep.
Oh, they do it.
They do that, but that's like a big, that's a pretty big project thing. They don't just do it out of the blue. They need something called a general search warrant, and that's a pretty big deal. And now, yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, I was in gangs for 5 years. No one did a general search warrant.
Jay Noble and the Monstarz clearly had a noticeable level of power within the streets of Toronto, and officers knew they had to take action quick. So after more than a year of surveillance and evidence gathering, Project Pharoah commenced. On June 5th, 2015, Project Pharoah was conducted with nearly 750 police officers participating in the early morning raids across southern Ontario. 50 search warrants were executed and 29 people were arrested, including Sheldon Tingle. Those warrants also yielded the seizure of 14 firearms, an estimated $3.8 million worth of various drugs, almost $200,000 in Canadian currency, and a number of luxury vehicles. An inspector was quoted saying, "With the warrants we've done this morning, they've taken us outside of Toronto and into Hamilton and other jurisdictions. That speaks to their sophistication. I don't think we're dealing with a low-level, corner street gang." Miraculously, even after the raids, Jay Noble still wasn't apprehended. He went on the run for nearly 4 months before he was captured and charged with a hefty list of offenses, including first-degree murder, participation in the activities of a criminal organization, and instructing commission of offense for criminal organization. While this may seem like the end of Noble's story, it isn't, because 3 months into pre-trial custody, he was hit with another first-degree murder charge, but this one was for an incident that happened more than a decade ago.
A Niagara Falls man has a measure of closure tonight, more than a decade after his murder north of the border. Michael Parmer was killed in 2005 after a night out in Hamilton, Ontario.
Hamilton police said they arrested a man this afternoon. News 4's Callan Gray has reaction from Parmer's family.
Jackie, Dave, Hamilton, Ontario police are still looking for 2 other suspects, but today arrested 32-year-old Jermaine Dunkley for shooting and killing Parmer, taking him from his mother and family far too soon.
It was the early morning hours of September 8, 2005, and closing time had come and gone at the former CD's bar on Hamilton's Ottawa Street. Hamilton police say many patrons were still milling about in the parking lot when a gunshot rang out. 22-year-old Michael Parmer was hit and was rushed to hospital, but died as a result of his injuries 12 hours later. He was one out of a group of 5 who had traveled to the Ottawa Street nightclub from Niagara Falls, New York. Investigators acknowledged that the case had gone cold until they issued a plea for fresh information back in August of 2017, as the unsolved murder was nearing its 12-year anniversary. Out of nowhere, a woman, whose name is protected under the publication ban, came forward with information implicating Jay Noble as the gunman behind Michael Parmer's death. As a result, Noble was swiftly charged with first-degree murder. Fast forward a year, trial would begin. The Crown theorized that Jay Noble and some of his friends attended CD's bar that night. After the club closed, the Crown submits that Noble and his friends socialized in the nearby parking lot where Michael, his friends, and other clubgoers were also socializing. They went on further, saying Michael and/or his friends annoyed Noble either because of their presence or because Michael had been flirting with a woman whom the Crown alleges was Jay Noble's girlfriend. In turn, this motivated Noble to shoot Michael in the eye with a handgun. Keep in mind, the Crown's theory is solely dependent on the unnamed informant, who the judge says has a dishonest character with a motive to lie and also has a lengthy criminal record. The judge also made note that her statements over the course of the interrogation has evolved over time, indicating she may have been coached by police officers handling the case, including disgraced constable Craig Ruthowsky. Watching the proceeding from a video room at the Hamilton jail and wearing an orange jumpsuit, mask hanging below his chin, Jay Noble broke into a wide smile and laughed after the judge reached his conclusion. He was acquitted of all charges, but his legal troubles still weren't over. The Neeko Mitchell trial would commence shortly after, with the Crown this time providing an absurd amount of evidence ranging from CCTV to wiretaps, all of which implicated Jay Noble in Neeko's death. The wiretaps were the most damning piece of evidence, however, since it provided several missing links to the case and revealed how Jay Noble truly felt about Neeko. In one intercepted call between Noble's mother and her friends, she can be heard expressing that her anger is so intense that she would kill Sislak, who she strongly believed was responsible for Ricky's death. "It's due time for my kid," she said. In another intercepted call, this time between her and Jay Noble, Noble can be heard loudly disagreeing with the belief Sislak had any involvement in the death of Ricky. Instead, he vehemently insisted it was Rico Gale and Neeko Mitchell. Wiretaps also revealed Jay Noble's baby mother had commented on a social media commemorative Instagram picture of Neeko Mitchell by posting 2 kissing emojis and 2 fist bumps. Soon after, investigators intercepted telephone calls between her and Jay Noble, where he threatened her with violence because of what he considered were supportive comments for the deceased Mitchell on the memorial page. In their conversation, Noble indicated that Mitchell was the one who pointed out his brother to the shooter. Noble went on further stating that he considered her to be a traitor to him and his family, and that when he saw her again, he would quote-unquote slap her up. To fully rest their case, the Crown presented 10 of Jay Noble's own songs, all of which were made after the death of his brother Ricky. They even provided unreleased songs that were stored in his phone, which was seized after his arrest. The Crown submitted that the lyrics present Jay Noble as a man willing to go above and beyond to avenge his late brother. They went even further, pointing to certain songs where they believe he is making direct claims, insisting he would hire someone to assassinate whoever pulled the trigger on his brother, and according to the Crown, that's exactly what he did. He got his cousin, Reshane Hayles-Wilson, to do the dirty work. On intercepted wiretaps, Noble is even heard creating a plan for him to evade authorities after he did it. Fortunately for investigators, they managed to capture him before he executed on those plans.